In the last video, we worked with the idea that we had some list of words or a dictionary that we wanted to use to measure something about the text. When we no longer have a predetermined list of words that we want to examine, then we have to go into more complicated textual tools. And in this video, we're going to start with those tools and talk about how to clean up the data and get it ready using a package that is available in R. And then in the next videos, or the next video for the next class, we will start to apply the cleaned up textual data to something that we might use, and we'll use the example of predicting earnings. So we're going to use the same textual document we had last time, and here we're going to start when we're going to start working with text. We usually have lots of examples of text. We don't have a single textual document, and so here we will work with a single document. Next time we will put together a bunch of documents. But when we create these bunch of documents, that's called a corpus of text. So and all of this is going to come from the quanteda package. Here we're going to create our corpus, and it's just the corpus function from that package. So I'm going to create a corpus of text. So here we just have a single text, but if we had multiple text, then we might have a list of these texts or a column of these texts, and the corpus would be multiple textual documents. So we can look and see a short summary of what that the corpus of text looks like. And it takes a little bit of time as it sort of runs up, because now we have a lot of text that we're going to be working with. And you'll see that with several of these functions that we're going to work with in this textual. So we get a short summary of that document. Here it says one document, and it is this text, and it has a bunch of tokens. By tokens, it just means pieces of the text. We're mainly thinking about words and sentences. So this is what we have to work with, or at least we've seen before. This is what it thinks it has to work with, and it needs cleaned up. Once we have the corpus, that was the documents and the aggregated text. We need to start breaking it up into pieces, and this is how we turn textual data into numbers, is that we count words that are in the document. And so we can do that in multiple ways. We can do single words. We can do what are called bigrams, which is two-word combinations, but it's just counts of combinations or instances of words. And so how we do that is we create tokens, which is the individual words that we're going to use. And some of this we did last time, but the packages like this help simplify some of this. So let me just walk through some of this. So from this corpus that we have, we're going to create our token objects, and the tokens function helps us do that. And it's going to break it up into what are called tokens, which we can think of as mostly words. And then it has some of these things to help clean it up, like we talked about last time. So remove punctuation, we can remove numbers, we can remove symbols. Let's make this true here. I had it false before. We can remove separators with commas and things like that. So now that helps us get closer to just words. Then we can have uppercase and lowercase words, so maybe we want to put them all together. So here we can do tokens, lowercase them. Then we can also choose certain ones to keep. So maybe we don't want to use all of the tokens. So here, these ones tend to show up in all of the financial reports. So year end, so fiscal year end, it would be something that shows up in all of them, or financial, or period, or report. So I just threw in some things that I know we don't want. So here it says selection equals remove, and padding equals false means don't throw in space for what we remove. And so it's going to select from the tokens we already have by removing the ones that we put in the list here. We could do other things as well, and we'll have another one where we'll remove some words you'll see in just a minute. But in the end, we want words that are going to help tell us something about the document, or more importantly, about differences between documents. And if all of them have them, it doesn't really make sense. So we'll do something similar here. Tokens select again. Here we're going to keep only certain ones. And here we're going to say only keep ones that have at least 4 characters. So that's going to get rid of the, a, and, as well as some things that just show up as random text that aren't really meaningful. So it'll get rid of anything like that. Also, I'm going to not keep words that have characters more than 20. So we did that last time as well. Something really long that it thinks is a word that isn't really a word, maybe we should get rid of that as well. And then finally, this word stem, this is where we were talking about stemming. So we're going to remove some of the ends of the words so that we have a single instance. So for example, if we're going to pick up, well, I'll use a simple one that we can use, run, and we want running, run, runner, well, that was not an easy one either. But different parts of the word that we want to keep just the basic meaning of the word, then we can stem the words as well. So all of these will help clean up some of the tokens. So it'll give us a list of tokens. And you can remove pieces of these, don't use it, and then go look at what the tokens look like, and you'll see it's doing all of these things helps it be a little bit cleaner. So we run all of this, and then we're going to show just the head of the token objects that we have created. And again, it's going to take a little bit of time. So notice what it has given us now is we have this one document, and it has all of these individual tokens. And these are sort of like words. So we've got begin. This is something that just has to do with the SEC document. So actually these aren't very meaningful. So we've got words that don't mean much to us right here, right? Or this isn't even a word, it's just random stuff that came in the document that we have. So there are a bunch of these that we don't really want, and it's sort of interesting that that all of the ones that are right at the beginning of the document are the garbage words. And so if we kept going down, we'd find a few better words. So we're going to do a little more cleanup in the next step, but this sort of gives you an idea of what it looks like here. And you could look through more of it if you wanted. So then once we have these individual tokens, we're going to create what is called a document term matrix, or they're different words that people use for that, but it's going to create a matrix where each word is counted. For each document, it's going to have each word. So every column, it's going to have a column for every word, and then it's in the cell, it's going to count how many of those words were in that document. So this document term matrix, we're going to create it here. DF, we're doing a document sort of frame matrix because that is the function here. And a couple of things, so we're going to start with the tokens object that we created. We're going to create a new object that is our document matrix, and the function is DFM. And then we're going to do a little bit more cleanup. So make them lowercase equals true. Well, we already did that, so that doesn't really matter much. I just wanted to show you can do it here as well. And then this part we have to do in the matrix function, not up here in the tokens. But it says stop words, remove all of those stop words. Well, the stop words is a list of words that someone has created a dictionary to remove certain words. And these are words that are used really frequently so that they don't really tell you any information about the document. And so some of these we would have already removed, but things like the, and things like that, they're going to be removed. So again, we're trying to clean up the tokens because ideally we would like a clean set of words that we could use to measure the words that are in that document. Remove punctuation. Well, we already did some of that up here anyway, but again, you could do this here. You could the only new thing here is this removing the stop words. Then we're going to trim the matrix, and this is sort of similar to what we have up here, but this helps us make sure we only use words that show up sort of enough to make it meaningful and not too much. The one that I'm going to do here is the minimum term frequency, so it has to show up at least 10 times. That individual word needs to show up at least 10 times. So hopefully what that's going to do is get rid of some of these nonsense combinations of letters and words. So we could do this. There are other things we could do to try and clean it up as well. So I'm going to just keep only words that have at least 10 words in them. When we get to using multiple documents, we'll add a few more things we can use to clean up here. So we're going to create this matrix and then again look at what the matrix looks like. And we can see down here, so that again it says one document, 599 features, so that is talking about columns or tokens that it has, so about 600 words. And then here it tells us a little bit about sort of what these are. And we can go look up here too. Tells us these sorts of things about what it looks like and some of the features of the documents. And then notice it has a few things about these features because we're just looking at a little bit of it. The word number shows up 45 times in the document. The word type shows up 18 times, 10K 31 times. These aren't really useful for us, but maybe down here we start to get to some that do matter. So company, notice it's a stem of the word, and it's mentioned 129 times. Change is mentioned 118 times. So we could keep going and look at all of those features. Really what we would like to know is what is in the document matrix and sort of get an idea of that. And we could look through every single word, or we can visually look at it. And so we'll do that and sort of get an idea of what these words are. As we keep going through this, we might fine tune all of these pieces, right? We might say, well, it needs to show up more than 10 times, or maybe more than 2 times, right? Like we don't know, there's no specific number that we want to that we need to require, but we might mess around with that and change different levels to try and get an idea of what would best clean up the data. Same thing with these up here and any of the other pieces and some additional ones that we'll do later. All right, so let's do a visual description with this. And here, it has a random component to it, so we're going to set the seed, and this function here creates what is called a word cloud. So we're going to go ahead and do this text plot word cloud. And you've seen these before, but this sort of gives us a visual view of what are the words that are showing up frequently. And some of this is great and some of this is not so great. So for example, font, well, that doesn't tell us anything about the company. So maybe that's something we want to remove. This v-align is just a formatting thing. The same thing, bottom is a formatting thing. So the things that are showing up a lot in this single document are formatting aspects. So ideally we would want to remove those because we know the formatting aspects don't really matter. So we can go look around in here and see what else shows up. Is there anything else in here that might start to tell us a little bit about what the document is about? Well, here we've got segment, so they're talking about segments of the company. That seems nice. Credit, employee, different. So notice there are some words in here: reason, subject, incorporation, or the stem of that, properties, the stem of that. So there are some things in here that seem to be the types of things that we would expect, but then it shows us that some of the dominant ones that show up are not really meaningful words. So we can fix some of this as we go through in when we're dealing with lots of documents. But again, this is sort of trial and error to try and figure out, can we get to something that that tells us something meaningful about the text. But this also gives us an idea of, these are the list of words that we're going to be dealing with, and if we're going to predict or use anything from them, these are the words that we have to work with. All right. So sometimes you'll see these that actually tell you something meaningful. I just want you to see some of the problems, and how I sort of removed some of the words before. So notice I did this year-end and fiscal financial. These came from just seeing one of these word clouds and starting to remove some of the ones that aren't meaningful. So you could remove some additional words and then plot it again and see if you start to get to something that makes sense. And then here, there's another type of graph we can do. So we're going to do this text stat frequency. It counts how many words are in each, from the document matrix. It sort of just lines up how many show up of each word. And so it just saved it in this frequency object, and the feature is what we're trying to do. So this is just some fancy sorting here. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it comes directly from the output of this object. And then we can graph it here. So we're going to graph the feature, so that's just the word, and then the frequency. And we're going to sort it from high to low. That's this part here. So we can, then it just gives us another view of what shows up a lot. And it's the same thing as that other one. So notice font shows up a lot, then size a little less, align a little less. So these ones that we're seeing up here show up very frequently, and all of these other ones are much less frequent. So, we might want to cut off any that show up. Maybe we're still getting formatting stuff once we, all the way out to here. So maybe like the 20 largest, or the 20 words that show up the most frequently, maybe we want to cut those out. And then we start to get to ones that seem to make more sense about the company. They still have a little bit, right? The cell space and cell pad, those are formatting ones too, but at least we start to get to things that look more like words we can use. All right, so this homework is going to be a little bit different. I just want you to mess around with the cleanup here, so you sort of get an idea of what it looks like. So here you're going to remove some more that don't make a lot of sense to you, and you're going to plot it and see what these, if the words start to look like something you would want to work with. And you could try some differences here, the minimum frequency or the character requirements, and see if you can start to get to something that looks like a word cloud that makes more sense. So in this, or in this plot, that you don't have these that show up all the time, and then these other ones that are much less frequent. And then I'm just going to have you submit your word cloud, and see. I don't have any specific thing in mind, but I just want you to get a feel of working through this and cleaning up the text a little bit before we start next time to try and use the text to predict earnings.